Feudal Japan, 1712. A young samurai named Kenji served a minor lord in a small province that had not seen war in 40 years. His armor was polished. His sword was sharp. His training was precise. But Kenji had never been tested. Not once. He had been raised inside a system so perfectly organized, so completely managed, so thoroughly safe that the only thing he had ever truly fought was boredom. Every morning, the same ritual. Every afternoon, the same drills. Every evening, the same hierarchies. Every week, the same. Every year, the same. He was a weapon that had never been fired. And somewhere beneath the discipline and the ritual and the perfect routine, Kenji felt something he could not name. A hollowness, like a bowl that had been carefully maintained but never once filled. He did not understand it yet, but that feeling was about to become the most important thing in his life. One morning, Kenji rose before dawn as always. He walked to the training courtyard as always. He picked up his sword as always. And then he stopped. He looked at his reflection in the blade. He had been told his whole life that he was ready, that his form was perfect, that his discipline was exceptional, that the system he lived inside had prepared him for anything. But standing there in the gray light before sunrise, Kenji asked himself one question he had never asked before. Ready for what? He had been prepared inside a cage, so refined, so comfortable, so perfectly rationalized that it no longer felt like a cage at all. It felt like mastery. But mastery of what? Nothing in Kenji's life had ever pushed back against him hard enough to require his full strength. Nothing had ever cut him so that he could discover whether he would heal. Nothing had ever broken so that he could discover whether he could rebuild. He was a china cup, fragile, beautiful, completely untested, and he knew it. What Kenji was living inside had a name, even if he did not know it. The German philosopher Max Weber would call it centuries later the iron cage, a world so perfectly rationalized, so completely organized around efficiency and safety and predictability, that the human being living inside it slowly loses the very vitality that makes him dangerous. The cage does not look like a prison. It looks like order. It looks like discipline. It looks like a good life. But order without resistance produces a specific kind of man. A man who has been told three things so consistently he has stopped questioning them. That he is fragile and must be protected. That his feelings are his compass and must always be trusted. That the world is divided between those who are with him and those who are against him. These three beliefs, what the psychologist Jonathan Haidt would later call the three great untruths, were the invisible architecture of Kenji's cage. He had been overprotected. His nervous system had never been forced to adapt to real stress. His immune system for life, the part of a man that develops through friction, through failure, through being genuinely overwhelmed and surviving, had been kept perfectly, dangerously clean. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the impediment to action advances action. But a man who has been kept from impediments his whole life does not advance. He softens, quietly, completely, without ever feeling it happen. That morning, Kenji did not go back inside. He stayed in the courtyard until the sun fully rose. He took his blade, and he wrote one line in the dirt at his feet. I'm living at half my strength. Not with shame, with clarity, because clarity is the beginning of everything. He thought about what had kept him half strength without his knowledge. It was not laziness. He was not lazy. It was not weakness. He was not weak. It was the governor, a term the extreme athlete David Goggins would use centuries later to describe the psychological mechanism inside every man that tells him to stop before he actually needs to stop. The governor does not protect you. It manages you. It keeps you at 60%, at 40%, at whatever level is just comfortable enough that you never discover how much more you actually have. Kenji had been governed his whole life by a system that told him he was already complete. He was not complete. He was managed. And standing in that courtyard with the sun rising and his own words written in the dirt at his feet, Kenji made a decision. He was going to find out what he was actually made of. Not inside the cage, outside it. Kenji left the province. He told no one. He walked into the mountains with 3 days of rice, his sword, and nothing else. The first day was uncomfortable. The second day was genuinely hard. The third day broke something open in him that the 40 years of perfect training inside the cage had never touched. He was cold. He was hungry. He was lost. And he was more alive than he had ever been in the courtyard. This is what the philosopher and trader Nassim Taleb would later call hormesis. The ancient Greek principle that small doses of what would destroy you at high levels actually make you stronger at low levels. Poison in small doses is medicine. Stress in controlled doses is growth. The body and the mind do not strengthen in comfort. They strengthen in response to demand. Every time Kenji's body told him to turn back, to go back to the warm courtyard and the polished armor and the predictable ritual, he pushed 5% further. Not dramatically, not heroically, just 5% past the place his governor told him to stop. That 5% was everything. Epictetus wrote that no man is free who is not master of himself. But Kenji was learning something Epictetus already knew, that mastery of self is not built in clean conditions. It is built in the 5% past where you wanted to stop. Every single time. Kenji came back from the mountains different. Not dramatically, not visibly, but different in the way that matters most. He had discovered something about himself that no amount of polished armor and perfect drills inside the cage could have ever given him. He was not fragile. He was not a china cup. He was a hydra, the mythological creature that grows 2 heads for every one that is cut off. He had been cut. He had been cold and hungry and lost. And he had not broken. He had adapted. He had grown. And now he understood something that changed the entire architecture of how he lived. He no longer needed to be protected from stress. He needed stress, not randomly, not recklessly, but deliberately, intentionally. As a practice, he adopted what Taleb would call the barbell strategy. In some areas of his life, his health, his loyalty, his honor, he was conservative and uncompromising. In others, his training, his challenges, his willingness to be tested, he was aggressive, seeking the hard thing, volunteering for the difficult assignment, choosing friction over comfort every single time it presented itself. He also practiced what the Stoics called via negativa, not adding more to his life to make it better, removing what was making it smaller. He removed the rituals that had become hollow, the relationships that had become pure routine, the habits that existed only to maintain comfort and produced nothing real. And what remained, leaner, sharper, truer, was a version of Kenji the Cage had never been able to produce. Kenji returned to the province. The same courtyard, the same armor, the same lord. But he was not the same man. The cage was still there. The iron cage of ritual and routine and perfectly rationalized order was exactly where he had left it, but no longer contained him. Because a man who has been genuinely tested, who has gone outside the managed comfort of his ordinary world and discovered what he is actually made of, cannot be fully caged again. He still trained every morning. He still served his lord. He still followed the code. But now he brought something to all of it that had been missing before. A man who had been sharpened by genuine friction, who had calloused his mind in the mountains, who had stopped trusting the governor and started trusting the 5%, who had stopped adding comfort to his life and started removing softness from it. He was not just a samurai anymore. He was anti-fragile, a man who did not merely survive stress, a man who required it. Most men never leave the courtyard. Most men spend their entire lives inside a cage, so beautifully constructed that it never occurs to them to question whether they are free. They polish their armor. They perfect their form. They follow every rule of the system that was built around them. And they die having never discovered what they were actually capable of. Not because they were cowards, because nobody ever told them that the cage was a cage. You're standing at the gate right now. The mountains are outside. They are cold. They are hard. They will break things in you that needed to be broken. And on the other side of that breaking is the only version of you that the cage could never produce. The anti-fragile man. The one who does not survive the hard thing. The one who needs it. If you're the kind of man who heard Kenji's story and felt something ancient recognize itself in you, then you already know which direction to walk. Subscribe to Lone Warriors. This is where men come to leave the courtyard. This is not a channel. It is the gate, and it is open. The war starts within.